Today, I am going to talk to you about how to say difficult numbers in English. Welcome to today's lesson. My name is Wes. This is Interactive English, which is the place that you want to be to practice and improve your English skills. So in today's lesson, I'm going to talk to you about difficult numbers, but I'm actually going to talk about how to say these difficult numbers. So if anything, this is more of a speaking lesson because it's speaking and using numbers. So we're going to look at a variety of different numbers, and we are going to look at how to say these numbers. How can you speak these numbers when you're having a conversation or if you're giving a presentation? How should you say these numbers in English? And when we do this, I actually want you guys to practice with me. I'm going to ask you to participate and practice and actually try to say these numbers out loud. But before we do that, I want to hear from you guys. So tell me your name in the chat. If you're watching this later, write your name. Tell me where you're from. We just want to hear from you guys. So Bassam, Kira, Maureen, Perry, Gosia Jr., Benny, Mildred, welcome. Thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you're ready to practice because like I said, we're not only going to look at these different numbers, but I actually want you guys to speak. I want you to try to say these numbers. And you know what they say, practice makes perfect. So before we start jumping into the numbers, let's look at the types of numbers because there are two types of numbers that we need to be familiar with. And those numbers are cardinal numbers and ordinal numbers. Now, cardinal numbers, which I think just about many of you are familiar with, are natural numbers used to measure size, maybe distance, and they are so common, and we use them all the time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We use cardinal numbers regularly. Ordinal numbers we use them to tell us the position of something in order or in a list. So something in order, we use ordinal numbers. Now, we did a lesson before on ordinal numbers, which I will link for you down in the description, and I will also put it up above. And I highly recommend you check that out. That whole lesson is about ordinal numbers. So when we're talking about ordinal numbers, we're talking about first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th. So those are the two types of numbers that we're going to be dealing with today. Cardinal numbers and ordinal numbers. Now, let's start out a little easy. And first, we're going to look at dates, day and month. So when we're talking about dates, we use ordinal numbers. We use ordinal numbers to say the date. So for example, I have that calendar right there. We do not say March 21. In English, you're going to use an ordinal number. So we say March 21st. That's very common in American English. And in British English, I think it's common to say 21st of March. Now, I'm just giving you this as an example. It's not a steadfast rule. In American English, people commonly say the month and then the ordinal number. You might hear it the other way around. Again, depending on the context, it depends on the conversation. But in American English, it's a little more common to say March 21st, March 22nd, March 23rd, March 24th. And I think in British English, it's slightly more common to say the ordinal number first, of and then the month. 21st of March, 22nd of March, 23rd of March, 24th of March. Many people always ask some of the differences between British and American English. This is just a slight difference, but again, you could use either one and people are going to understand you as long as you use the ordinal number. Now, if we're talking about years, it gets a little more tricky then, because so many times when I've been teaching students and we're talking about something, or even if reading or discussing something and people get to a year, you can always tell sometimes there's this quick pause about, oh, wait, how do I say this again? How do I say this correctly? So just to kind of talk about this, if it's a 3-digit year, all right, there's 2 different ways you can say this. You can say the first as a single digit and then the next 2 digits. So in my example, 786. We'd say the year 786. And I put an asterisk by this number because I think that's a little more common. You say a single digit and then the next 2 digits. I think that's a little more common, the way of expressing a 3-digit year. But you can also say it as a whole number, 912. You could say it as a whole number, and that's absolutely fine. So there's 2 different ways to say a 3-digit number. Now, if we're talking about a 4-digit year, which I think is, very common, look right here. We say them by 2 digits. So the first 2 digits we say together, and the second 2 digits we say together. 1492. Again, I put an asterisk there because I think that's the most common way of saying this. And right here, 2012. Now, this is where it gets a little more challenging and confusing because you could say the year 2012, but also when you're talking about the first 100 years of a new millennia, you would say it regularly as a whole number. And that's why I said instead of 2012, we can say it as a whole number because we're in that first 100 years of a new millennia. And we would just say 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. And right now we're in 2018. So again, very common, the first 100 years of a new millennia, you would use the whole number. Now, if we get to down here, so this is going to go all the way up to 2099. And after 2099, we get to 2100. And when we're talking about new centuries, it's usually said the whole number of hundreds. So 2100. And that's kind of down here, like we have 1700. We say the hundreds for new centuries. 1800, 1900, 2000, because that's the new millennia, and then we go to 2100. And then after that, we would go, again, back to the 2 digits, 2101, 2102, 2103, 2104. Now, you might be wondering, Wes, why are we talking about some of this? Because honestly, the year 2100, you can do the math. I'm probably not going to make it to that year because it's still 72 years away. It's a long way off. But again, it's always good to know how to express these numbers, especially in the past, because we often talk about history and we talk about dates, and it's important to know how to say these. So again, definitely keep in mind those first 2 with the asterisk right there. If it's a 4-digit year, again, 2-digit, 1492. Now, what I want to do, we are now going to practice, okay? So I am going to give you some dates and some years, and I want you to actually say these out loud. If you want, you can say them in your mind. It's perfectly fine, but I will give you a moment. You can say the number, and then I will say it, and you can listen and see if it's the same, okay? So let's practice saying some of these. Ready? Number 1. I want you to look at number 1. How would you say number 1? Okay? How would you say this? Say it out loud, all right? Most of us, maybe you're at home, doesn't matter where you are, just you can whisper it if you don't want people to hear you. Even if you're watching this later, practice saying these numbers out loud. That's the best way. So number 1, July 14th, 2018. Again, July 14th, the ordinal number, 2018, we'd say it as a whole number. You could also, if you want, you could say July 14th, 2018. But I don't think that's as common to say 2018 most of the time. Within that first 100 years of a new millennia, we're just going to say the whole number. July 14th, 2018. Now, number 2. How would you say number 2? All right. I would say March 20th, 1800. March 20th, 1800. Remember, new centuries, it's of hundreds. 1800, 1900, all right? 2100, 2200. Number 3, how would you say number 3? Okay, all right. November 12th, 1978. November 12th, 1978. This is an amazing day in history, okay? This is, in case you're wondering, this is when I was born. This is my birthday. If you want to know how old I am, you guys can do the math. Now, number 4. How would you say number 4? Okay, go for it. January 1st, 999. January 1st, 999. You could also say January 1st, 999 and say it as a whole number. That's okay as well. January 1st, 999. January 1st, 999. Okay, so if you were actually speaking, all right, I want you to write in the chat, just write dates. Okay, write dates, and that way I know you're speaking and actually practicing and participating in these lessons. And even if you're watching this later, in the comment, write dates so I know that you guys you're following along and participating in these lessons. Now, I'm not going to get so much into time because we did a whole other lesson talking about time expressions, which I think you guys should definitely check out if you haven't already seen it. I will link it up here as well as put it in the description. So we're not going to discuss too much with time. Now, let's look at decimals. Okay, so if we're talking about decimals, and you see this a lot if you're discussing math, something like that, and you would say the numbers individually as cardinal numbers, and the decimal point is just called point. We just say point. So first one, 4.8, using those cardinal numbers, 4.8. The next one, 2.0. Now, this is a little different because you could also say 2.0, but when you're talking about decimals, if you have a 0, you could also say O. That's actually very common. I actually use O probably more than I say 0, but that's just me. So you could say 2.0. A lot of times when you hear versions or updates, people will talk about, oh, this version, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and they keep updating it. So 2.0. The next one right here, 5.65, and then 3.111. We're just using those cardinal numbers. That's for decimals. If we're talking about fractions, okay, we're going to use cardinal numbers for the numerator, which is where that x is up top, and ordinal numbers for the denominator. So cardinal numbers for the numerator and ordinal numbers for the denominator, all right? So for that first one, look at that one. I could say 1/3, or again, if there's a 1 in the numerator, then I could just say 1/3. Remember, the 3, since that's the denominator, an ordinal number, 1/3 or 1/3. Now, if we're talking about there is not a 1 in the numerator, 3/5. The ordinal number, it needs to be plural because there's more than 1 in the numerator. 3/5. Now down here, 1/4. Or you could say 1/4, or you could say 1/4. You could also say 1/4. 1/4, 1/4, or 1/4. And right here, down here, again, this is very common. You could say 1/2, you could say 1/2, or you could just say half. And if there's more than 1 in the numerator, for example, maybe it's 3/2, then we'd say 3/2 because it would need to be plural. So again, let's practice speaking and actually saying some of these. So let's practice speaking some decimals and fractions, okay? I'll give you a chance to say it, and then I will say it, and you can see if you did it right. All right, so number 1, how would you say number 1? Say it out loud. Okay, number 1, 4/5. 4/5. Remember, there should be that S on the end because it is plural, that ordinal number, 4/5. Number 2, how would you say it? 6.07. 6.07. You could also say 6.07, that's fine, but I would tend to say 6.07. Number 3, all right? Say number 3. 1/8. 1/8, you could say an eighth if you want to just say it without the 1. 1/8 or an eighth. Number 4, how would you say number 4? Okay, 9.8457. We're just listing those cardinal numbers. 9.8457. And the last one, number 5. How would you say 5? There's different ways you could say it. You could say 3/4, all right, because again, it needs to be plural, 3/4, or you could say 3/4. Again, 3/4, 3/4, all right? If you got all of those correct, all right, I want you to hit that like button, all right? Or write in the comments, write like, all right? So I know that you got all of those right. You were speaking and you were saying those numbers, okay? Write that in the chat, the comments. Just say like, all right? So now I want to take a look at, this is going to be a little more fun. I want to take a look at some confusing numbers. And this is more of a pronunciation exercise. So before we jump in, oh, excellent. I see you. Farat, Nad, Sumaya, Bassam, Bogdan, excellent. Thank you guys for participating in the lesson. So confusing numbers, it's more, I think, has to do with pronunciation because saying the numbers. But often when you're talking about these cardinal numbers and people are saying them, if they're talking about an amount or they're talking about a time, they can get a little confusing. So I want to look at some of these and we're going to practice them as well. I got a fun practice for you guys. So the first one, it's mostly dealing with actually teens and the tens of numbers. So for example, 1330. 1330. Now, one thing to listen for, if these numbers might be confusing for you, is in the 30, all right, especially in American English, we tend to use that flap T, which sounds more like a D sound, like a soft D sound. So I'd say 1330. All right, I'm kind of emphasizing that so you can hear it a little better. 1330. Same with the next one, 1440. 1440. 1550. All right, this one you don't hear that flap T really at all in 50, so you really need to listen for that een, that long E sound. 1550. 1550. And the last one, 1990. 1990. But when people are speaking, notice that I'm really emphasizing these numbers. But when people are speaking, especially maybe you're on the phone and somebody's throwing out these numbers and you can't hear them really well, it can be confusing and trying to figure out, wait a second, did they say 19 or did they say 90? So we're going to practice some of these right now. And the way we're going to do this is I am going to say one of the numbers, all right? You are either going to move this way or you're going to move that way. And then I will say another one and you will move again, this way, that way. And then I'll say another one. And ultimately, you are going to end up in a city. And then I want you to write down which city that you ended up in. So let's look at the board. This will make a little more sense, okay? So here you see different numbers, 1330. So I'm going to say the red one. I'm going to say start with red, and you're either going to move this way or you're going to move that way, depending on what you hear. And then we'll be at the blue, and I'll say another number. And then also you're going to move this way or this way. And then down here at the green, all right? So I'm going to say one number red, and then a blue, and then a green. And each time you're going to move to the left or the right. And at the end, you can see down here a list of cities. You're going to end up in a city. And then I want you to write down which city did you end up in, because you're supposed to this is a listening exercise. Listen to which number I'm saying and then see where you ended up. So for example, if If I say 30, and the next one 30, and then again I say 30, you're going to be moving this way each time, 30, 30, 30, and we'll end up in Cairo. So that's where we'd end up, and I wouldn't mind that because I really want to go to Egypt. So are you ready? Here we go, all right? So we'll start really slow, and then we'll go, I'll get a little quicker. So the first one, all right, red, all right, 13, 13. Now blue, 30, 30. Now green, 30, 30. I'll say those again. 13, 30, 30. Right where, which city? Where did you guys end up? Write that in the chat. 13, 30, 30. Okay. What are you guys hearing? Okay. I'll say it one more time. Starting with the red. 13, and then blue, 30, green, 30. Which city did you guys end up in? I see some different ones, New York City, but most of us, yes, Bangkok, exactly. If you ended up in Bangkok, you are in the right place. We're all there together. I said 13, 30, 30. You should have ended up in Bangkok. All right, let's do it again. Ready? Now we're going to start with the red. 30. Blue, 13. Green, 13. All right. 30, 13, 13. 30, 13, 13. Where did you guys end up? All right. 13, 30. No, sorry. 30, 13, 13. All right. The place you should have ended up in is London. All right. I see many of you there with me. Yes. 30, 13, 13. Okay. Now that you know how to play this, we're going to do another one, but this time I'm going to say the three numbers and I'm going to say them quickly. All right. I'm just going to say the three numbers quickly, and you're going to need to move to the left or the right, except this time we're using either 19 or we're using 90. Okay. So I'm just going to say the three numbers consecutively. Listen, and then tell me, where did you guys end up? All right. Ready. The three numbers are 19, 19, 90. All right. I'm going to try and say them a little quicker. 19, 19, 90. All right. Where did you guys end up? Which city are you in? I'll say it one more time. 19, 19, 90. Let me know. Where did you guys end up? Some of you, yes, David Farrat, yeah, Bassam, Geronimo, New York City. Excellent. All right, one more. Okay. So again, I'll say these numbers consecutively. 90, 1990. 90, 1990. Where did you end up? I'll say it one more time. 90, 1990. I hope that all of you ended up in Tokyo with me and Laura and David, Farhat, Bassam. Excellent. So this is a good way to practice, again, those listening skills and try to see if you can identify those confusing numbers. Because again, it's always good practice because there are going to be points where, like I said, you're on the phone or you're in some situation, somebody's telling you a price, and maybe you're like, uh-oh, did they say 19 or did they say 90? Because if you're talking about how much something costs, that's a pretty big difference. So let's now look at some big numbers and how we say big numbers. And my first question to you, and we're going to practice speaking and listening, is how would you say this number? All right, if I show you this number, how would you say this number? All right, so let's look at, we just need to break it down. To say this number, and you're talking about big numbers, we use commas to separate the big numbers into smaller pieces. And if you can think about it this way and think about, okay, there's the comma, this is what I'm talking about. it helps us separate the numbers. So let's start down far at the end there with our number 123. Okay, that first comma is talking about the thousand. All right, so we have 789,123. Okay, now let's move to the next one. Million. 456,789,123. The next comma, billion. 123,456,789,123. That is how you would say this number. You use the commas to identify, okay, are we talking billions, millions, thousands, and then just say the whole number. 123,456,789,123. You can try saying it really fast if you want to. So what I want to do now is, again, we're going to practice speaking some of these numbers, and I want you to say these numbers right here. So practice your speaking skills. How would you say this number up here? And then I'll say it. Okay? That number is 115,045. Now, one thing that's a little different about this number is when you see that zero in there, all right, you're not going to say 0 or O or anything. You kind of just, kind of ignore it and skip over it. 115,045. How about this next number right here? I want you guys to say this number here. Practice speaking. What would you say? So this number, again, you have those two commas in there. 46,519,890. 46,519,890. All right. And this last one, this bigger number here, how would you say this one? Ready? Go. So that number right there is 712,036,112,563. 712,036,112,563. All right, so if you were actually speaking, I want you to write big numbers in the chat so I know, oh, okay, you were speaking, participating in the lesson. All right, so now that we were practicing some speaking, all right, I want to test your listening. So in this next part, I'm gonna say the number, and I want you to write down the number that you hear. I'm gonna say a big number, and I want you to write down what you guys hear. Okay, so that's what I want to do for the next part. Practice your listening skills. We're doing a lot of listening and speaking practice. Okay, so the first number that I have for you is this one, and I want you to write it down in the chat or write it down in the comments if you're watching this later. All right, and that is 413,330. 413,330. 413,330. Okay, when we're saying these big numbers, we're just saying these are all cardinal numbers, all right? 400. All right, excellent. All right, we got some good answers. Remember a difference, 1330, all right? So what you should have answered is right here, because, whoops, let me get up on the screen there. 413,330. Excellent. All right. The next one. All right. Write this in the chat. All right. This is good listening practice. Ready? The next big number I have for you is 996,555,009. 996,555,009. All right, remember I told you kind of skip over those zeros in there. Keep that in mind. 996,555,009. All right, Excellent. Glad. All right. Perfect. All right. You're getting some answers. Excellent. Thank you guys for answering. What you should have written is this right here. 996,555,009. All right. Or you could say and 9. 996,555,009. All right. The next big number. Are you ready? Write it in the chat. This is a big one. It's biggie. 208 billion, 99,100,517. 208 billion, 99,100,517. What write that number down. See if you guys can write that big number down. 208 billion, 99,100,517. What do you guys think? That is the biggest number of all of them that we've done. All right, excellent. So what I hope you guys wrote, what you should write is this: 208 billion, 99,100,517. Okay, so that is some good practice. Again, listening for these big numbers. And it's not often that you're going to be talking about numbers in the billions, but it's always good to practice and practice and practice. All right, so thank you guys so much for joining. If you actually did this practice, all right, even now or later on in the comments, I want you to write speaking. So I know that you were actually participating and practicing your language skills and saying these numbers, because that's what this lesson was all about, is speaking and saying these difficult numbers when you are having a conversation or, talking about numbers. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. Please like and share this video. Tarana, Bassam, Geronimo, Eduardo, Anasim, Mariam, Sumaya, Roses, thank you. Junior, Bogdan, sorry if I'm missing people. Please, again, like and share, write us comments. We love hearing from you guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.